Hey guys, it's Martin Cliffe here with another video, and this time we're going to look at some bass. Now I showed this, my trusty Yamaha TRB4 off in, I think it was episode 8 of my Guitars series, but I was just DI'd in. So this time I've got my rig out, so I thought I'd do a bit of a walkthrough and explain what I use. Basically my signal comes from my bass into my pedal board, which from that camera over there you'll be able to see there is a Sonic Research turbo tuner. It's the old ST200 model with a hard switch, and it's a little bit slower but it works fine for bass, and my bass doesn't go out of tune anyway. Then it hits a MXR bass compressor. All of this stuff nearly is MXR stuff. I don't have any attachment with them. It's just that it sounds good and it's relatively affordable and it's built like a tank. Hits the bass compressor, then it goes underneath the board. There is a subwoofer which splits the signal into two paths at that point after the compressor, so that the compression is always there. I can always add more compression later on at the amp. It's all powered from a Custom Audio Electronics Power Stations MC403, I think it is, the big one. I had it spare, and we're on a Novo, Pedal Train Novo 18 again because it was the board I had to hand, but it works. So one signal then from the buffer goes straight to this bass preamp. I'm going to, the bottom left one, I'll take a picture and I'll stick it up as well so it's easier to see exactly what's going on. And from there it feeds the bottom one of the two amps behind me. I don't know how easy these are to see if I move out of the way. Not very. Okay, there are two TC Electronic BG 250s behind me, because who doesn't need 500 watts of bass? My basic bass signal feeds the lower one, which is a 2x10. Took that inspiration from Billy Sheehan. He used to use a 4x10 for bass and a 1x15 for high end. I'm using a 210 for bass and then a 1x12 for my higher end, my more fun stuff. And then the other signal feeds across the bottom row of the pedal board to the bass envelope filter, the bass octave deluxe, the bass overdrive, the bass distortion, and then up to the bass chorus deluxe, the carbon copy bright, and into the other bass preamp which feeds the upper amp, which is the 112. All I had on at the beginning is the compressor, which is always on, and the two preamps, which are always on. But it's a really sort of solid tone. Whatever I do to the tone, I still get the fundamental. So just the low amp, I'll take the output all the way down on the bass preamp. Going to the high amp, this is just the low signal. So it's slightly muddy, it's pretty powerful, pretty punchy, not overly loud in here. I'm probably on about 4. I'll take pictures of the control panels of the two amps and post them as well. But yeah, that's the core low tone, and that's unchanged by any of the effects. Now if I take out that one, this is the slightly treblier. It's treblier because it's a 112 rather than a 210, so there's much less speaker moving it, and also because the bass is rolled off on the preamp. So that on its own wouldn't be a terribly satisfying bass sound. but that's why we add in the other one. Now what I'm going to try and do, I'm recording the DI out straight into the audio recorder, and I may pan them slightly just to give some kind of sense of, obviously we're not actually operating left and right, but I need to do something to make them sort of stand out, which one is which. Obviously it sums to mono. You could take the DIs, stick them for a merge box and just send a single line to house. Would be fine. There are no phase issues with this rig. So let's run through the pedals just briefly in order. As I say, none of them will affect the low end signal, so it's or you always get that core sort of thump that you want from a bass. So the envelope filter, that may have clipped on a couple of those popped notes. Octave. I was trying to work out a way of ruining this, and I may revise it at some point. So the octave went to the low amp instead, just because the 210s handle it a bit better than the 112. But if I pull the dry out of that, so you just hear the octave tone. You're occasionally struggling to track, but it's more sort of synthy. Overdrive. I have the drive really low on this, it's pretty subtle. But again, if I take the other amp out, it's not really sounding very bassy at that point. So splitting the signal by amping is a really useful sort of thing to try if you have two amps. Distortion, then I go for a much less subtle approach with. This time the drive's about halfway up and there's hardly any of the dry signal going through. Chorus I've got set as a pretty standard bass chorus kind of sound. and I'm not using the crossover on it again because I've got the signal crossed over already. Just very full sounding. And then the delay, I went for the carbon copy bright because on bass the last thing I want to do is muddy up the signal. So the ordinary carbon copy was just a little bit dark for this application. I did have one incarnation of the board that had both on, but this and then obviously you can combine stuff, so maybe you stick some overdrive with the delay. Or maybe the envelope filter and the chorus. So whatever I do, however crazy I am with it all, I'm always underpinned by that core, sort of solid, straightforward bass tone underneath everything. It really helps to enable me to be creative without stopping being the bass player. So yeah, that's my rig. Hope you found it interesting, useful. So I'll take some pictures and stick them in relevant places in the video. Let me know what you think, not only about the rig, but do you want to see more bass content? Less bass content? I know my mate Rob will always say he wants to see more bass content. It's more difficult for me to do, particularly with the big rig. I can just DI the pedal board in, no trouble. It's also difficult for me to physically fit the width of the bass in camera. Even now I'm struggling, but in my little studio it is quite tricky. But yeah, I think this is a rig that has been relatively unchanged for a while. I don't get to play with it very often. More often than not, I'm plugged into a little TC Electronic BG250-208 because I've got to carry it, and they're 11 kilos, whereas these I think are 21 and 18. It adds up when you've got a bass and a pedal board as well. Not a lot of fun if you've got to move it around, you know, across roads and up and down stairs and that kind of thing, even with a trolley. But when I do get to play with the full rig, it is a whole lot of fun. Yeah. Okay guys, until next time, take care.